Generation High Output is a group of friends who works together on car projects, and we also each have projects of our own. I don't mean to say that we fix and restore cars. We buy cars that have one foot already in the grave and pretty much get them across the finish line. For some reason, the four of us are obsessed with chasing this unrealistic idea of trying to buy a decent running project car for under $1,000. If you're into project cars, you may have seen this triangle before in your life. Good, fast, cheap. Pick any two. We're on a quest to see if we can get all three, and this car is the closest we've ever come to achieving that goal. Whether it's Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or AutoTrader or whatever site you're on, the category of cars listed for $1,000 or less is a scary place where only brave men and fools dare to tread. Cars in this price range usually have serious mechanical problems, high mileage, and are usually in very rough shape cosmetically. Now, we're no stranger to cheap used cars. We've had the Taurus SHO, the Monte Carlo, and the SC400. All of these cars ended up never running reliably enough to ever be used. But that didn't stop us from trying again one more time. In 2013, my friends and I bought a Mercury Grand Marquis for a project car. We bought the car thinking we'll have some fun with it, maybe make a couple videos, and 10 years later, here's our first video about the car. The car is a 1991 Mercury Grand Marquis GS. It has a 5-liter V8 engine, 302 cubic inches, that makes 150 horsepower. It's coupled to an automatic transmission, and the car had about 80,000 miles on it at the time of purchase. Better yet, it even had a working air conditioner. The car had been smoked in by the previous owner, a man who brought the car out from New York State when he retired. We bought the car for $600 cash. The sale of a vehicle in Arizona has to be witnessed by a notary, and as this was a Sunday, there weren't any around. Luckily, we were able to search online and find a mobile notary who came to us. And with that, we drove the car home. The very same day we bought the car, we brought it home and began the process of cutting the roof off. This can be done with a reciprocating saw, a grinder, and other household tools. This process goes a lot faster when you don't bother removing the interior trim pieces or disconnecting the electrical wires, such as for the dome light.
I saw a spark when I cut through those wires.
Oh, I thought the wires went off.
Yeah.
Later, we lowered the ride height in the rear by cutting a coil off of the rear springs. And surprisingly, this did not have any effect whatsoever on the ride comfort at all. We also cut the exhaust off after the catalytic converters, which gave the car a nice, low, rumbly sound. Later on, we added stickers and a flag as well.
We did driving
At Christmas time, we added an angel to the front and some Christmas lights. It wasn't long before we added a light bar, and eventually a second light bar.
Nice.
The idea behind this car is that it was shared among the three of us. We used the car for doing errands, or hauling oversized items, or basically any time you didn't feel like driving your own car. We also just spent a lot of time cruising around together. The experience of driving the car is very boat-like, with one finger steering, the lazy burble of the motor, and the soft, floaty ride. You're also very exposed and get a greater sense of the world around you when you're driving the car. While this was a running and driving car for $600, it did have several problems. First, the car burned a lot of oil. We had to keep topping it off with a quart every month or so. The engine developed a bad misfire on the number 1 cylinder and was often chugging along on only 7 cylinders. We drove the car out in the desert a lot, power sliding and having a lot of fun. During one of these excursions, the power antenna was raised and got ripped off. The final nail in the coffin was the car having a major overheating event while bringing home furniture one day. The car sat for a while before we decided to fix it. We bought a new radiator on Amazon, the cheapest one that you could possibly buy. Part of the process called for flushing the radiator, and we did this, but we just couldn't get it to flush clean.
Whoa! Oh my god.
We tore the front of the engine apart, removed all the accessories, which was necessary in order to replace the water pump, and we decided to run a completely separate cooler for the transmission. There she goes, moving on her own for the first time in 2 years. Well, mostly. We drove the car around the block, and the car was having trouble shifting into gear. It took us a while to figure out, but what had happened is that the cheap radiator leaked internally and water got into the transmission fluid. The coolant and transmission fluid mixed together into a disgusting pink milkshake type of material.
This is what came out of our transmission.
It was at this point that we finally figured out that the transmission was completely ruined. So we bought the car in 2013, and we actually put about 6,000 hard miles on it. This was our favorite project car because it actually ran and drove. The cost to replace the transmission, even with a rebuilt or junkyard one, would exceed the value of the car. At this point, the car's been stored outside, uncovered, for several years. Amazingly, the seats are still in great condition. We did try working on the car to get to repair it ourselves, and realized that the scope of the problem is much bigger than we initially thought. We've talked about swapping the engine and transmission with another one, but haven't really taken any action on it yet. So that's the story of our Mercury Grand Marquis. What do you think we should do with the car next? post a comment and share your thoughts with us below. And thanks for watching.